Hi everyone. My name is Asif and I lead Salesforce Practice at Royal Sabre. I welcome you all in today's webinar on behalf of Royal Sabre and Salesforce teams. Um, so as part of today's session, we are going to talk and discuss more on Salesforce B2C Composable Commerce, various aspects of Salesforce B2C Composable Commerce. Um, since the launch of Salesforce B2C Composable Commerce, we've been engaged into multiple projects at Royal Sabre, executing those projects and POCs on grounds on fully composable model and the hybrid storefront model of Salesforce B2C Composable Commerce. Um, During the execution of these projects and the POCs, we have come across the challenges, the solutioning approach, the complexities, uh, the the benefits, the scalability, and various aspects of this Salesforce B2C composable commerce. So we'll try to run through those aspects and plus the new features which Salesforce has added as part of this composable within this composable model. We'll try to touch base all of those aspects in today's session. So joining me today, a very special guest from Salesforce, who has been there since since Salesforce started thinking towards the headless and the composable approach. Um, he's the product management director at Salesforce, and it is always pleasure and privilege having him as part of these sessions, the webinars or the podcast. Learning from him, his experience, his skills, his knowledge, Mr. James Semple. James, thank you for giving us your time again today and joining this session.
Thank you. I can never live up to these intros that you give me, Lala.
Oh
You do.
no, you always do. You always do.
That's great.
And I have a couple of my more friends from Royal Sabre who has been part of with me, in our past podcasts on Salesforce B2C Composable Commerce. Iftikhar Khan, who is our Salesforce B2C Commerce Certified Architect, and Foha Khalid, who is our Salesforce B2C Composable Tech Lead. Um, all right, so kicking off this session, James, starting with you. We've been hearing this composable term every now and then. Before we deep dive more into the complexities or the various aspects of composable commerce, still there are customers or there are people when we speak with them, this composable term is pretty new for them. How do you see this? What exactly is, or how do you differentiate in a headless and a composable way, in a composable framework? And why, seems like every customer would like to move towards this architecture.
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to quickly differentiate, let's start from the idea of what people have often termed a monolith or an all-in-one solution. So in that solution, your business data, your business functionality, and the user experience, so maybe a website, for instance, they're all combined into a single product. In a headless architecture, what happens is that the back end of the system starts to handle the business data and functionality, and it exposes that through APIs, and then you can build a UX on top of it. So the UX, as I say, the user experience layer, like a website or a native app or something like that, that is called the head of the architecture. And typically, for anyone who doesn't work in technology, it's called the head because it's at the top of the picture, basically. So in a composable situation, we're already headless, and we're supplying all of these various user experiences with data and functionality through APIs. Now, if you think of it that way, you could break those APIs down into discrete package business capabilities is one phrase that people use. So for instance, you could take content from here and search from them. This could be separate products, or even from separate different product vendors. So a composable architecture allows you to kind of have a headless architecture that's also got discrete functionality. Now, the reason that I think a lot of people are talking about this, and the reason that became very appealing, was a lot of companies felt they were stuck with legacy technology that became quite inflexible. And I think they believed that inflexibility was a result of those monolithic architectures, and they wanted to use this as an opportunity to move forward. And so there's no doubt that there is more flexibility in one of those architectures, that's for sure, in a composable architecture. And I think the other, excuse me, the other appealing aspect is that you may like 90% of what one product vendor does, but you don't want to be completely tied to their roadmap. You might want to bring in something from other product vendors. So it's that ability to kind of mix and match, gives you maximum flexibility to differentiate yourself as a brand. And I guess the last thing a little bit, and let's be honest, I think there was a lot of like, everyone's going composable, why aren't we? But no, it does have a lot of benefits, definitely.
Exactly. I mean, that's where my next question is, James. I mean, irrespective of for which customers or for which businesses this product is or this model is best suitable, in terms of benefits, how do you see, I mean, when it comes to the legacy and the monolithic architecture, how this model brings up, or what benefits this model brings up on the table?
I think the primary model, the primary, sorry, benefit of this, of particularly say going headless, is the ability to serve multiple different channels right out of the box, right? That ability to be able to expose that functionality to serve multiple channels. If we're looking at the future right now, I think it's one of the best ways of staying future-proofed, is that ability that, you know, you can expose your functionality to obviously a website, maybe a native app, maybe social media, maybe some kind of in-store experience like a self-service kiosk or a clienteling experience, maybe a point of sale. You know, I've got customers who expose it to in-car experiences. So one thing is that proliferation of channels that we're seeing already and will probably continue to grow. So that's just the headless architecture. As I already said, I think one thing that's super important is it's very difficult to find one single product vendor in the technology space who completely aligns with your roadmap for what you want to do as a brand and as a company. So I think that ability to always be able to pick and choose from multiple product vendors is a huge benefit. And then I would say that there's a lot of, if you get this right, then there's a lot of operational agility available, the ability to break down your site into multiple different components, each of which can have a separate team working on it, each of which can be deployed separately, things like that. So I think that, and the fact that ultimately integrations, all you need to integrate with another product is an API. So if you might work in a kind of relatively niche, marketplace, and there's a couple of products out there that are really specific for what you're working with. You don't need them to custom build any kind of proprietary integration. You can just take anything that has an API. So lots of benefits, frankly. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And particularly, as I say, with the channels thing, spoke to a customer who had effectively 5 channels. How else could you possibly build this? It would be so much work to do it any other way. So definitely very future-proofed, very much the way you have to work, I think, with right now at the moment.
Great. Yeah, I think I can pretty much align with what you just said, because or relate with what you just said, because when we are speaking with customers, we see this thought, in their mind that they can make use of best of the breed available in market with respect to the different e-commerce components, or different storefront components with respect to content, search, promotions, the payments. Uh, all right. So going more into this specifically into Salesforce B2C composable architecture, Iftikhar, you please tell us about there are some other composable architectures as well which are being introduced by different other e-commerce platforms. How Salesforce differs, or how Salesforce stand out when it comes to their packaging and the architecture which they've introduced as part of B2C Composable Commerce.
I think Salesforce Composable Commerce standouts in several way with respect to other composable platforms. For example, Salesforce provide a full package for the storefront. When I say the full package, it means that you do have everything available regarding to the CMS, customer management, the login registration things, and the complete checkout flow. Everything is there in the Salesforce platform. You do not need to have any external things, external providers to come. So you have a full package in this. For example, for the page designer, for the CMS, it has a page designer, and the Einstein search is there for the search, and similarly for other modules. So the full package is available. And the second thing is that, which is very interesting, so Salesforce offers a hybrid model approach for the transitions from your monolithic to the composable architecture, which is very flexible in terms of transitions and which offers less risk of the migration. So this is a very unique thing which Salesforce is offering. And then the managed runtime environment is there for deploying your storefront layer and you do not need to have a separate hosting things, separate deployment infrastructure. So Salesforce offer this infrastructure by themselves by offering MRT. And then there are many third-party pre-built accelerators available where you can inject third-party systems into the Composable. So I think these are several things which make it like unique for the Salesforce Commerce comparatively with the other systems.
All right, great. Excellent. Iftikhar, I think that was pretty much you covered the complete package, what Salesforce offers as part of Composable framework. Now dive deep, into different or each of these individual components. Foha, you've been part of multiple POCs, executing one of the on grounds project on Salesforce B2C Composable Commerce. How do you see this MRT, fits in within this B2C composable architecture, and its usage as well, when used by by the customers on the ground?
Sure. This is a really frequent question for people who are new to Composable. This question of what exactly is MRT, because we say MRT a lot. So it stands for Managed Runtime. And basically, in a crux, it's an interface that's provided to your clients from where they can deploy their code. It does all of that itself. It has its own server. It deploys, it hosts your code. It's a platform for taking care of all of that so that you don't have to worry about it. It covers, security. It covers ensuring that your data stays safe, as well as managing deployments and monitoring, tracking performance or cache issues. There are a lot of things that come along with MRT that we can dive into, later on in this webinar. But besides that, there are other features as well that clients themselves can use. So you have a preview functionality where you can actually see what your site would look like, which is similar to what we have in Business Manager's toolkit. So there's some features that are also in Business Manager, and there's some things that make MRTs kind of different from Business Manager as well. So this is another question that we're frequently asked is MRT like a replacement for Business Manager, or does it do everything that Business Manager does? So it's kind of something that enhances, or it covers the composable aspect of, B2C composable commerce without actually replacing Business Manager. And for clients, just, to put it in a crux, it's just an interface for them to be able to see and manage the deployments of their code.
Yeah. I agree what you just said. And when we speak with customers, that when we execute these POCs or the projects, I think there's one misconception in terms of that customers think that they are going to they don't have or they will not have the business manager once they move towards the composable model, and they will only have MRT. I think so. I think that's one thing, and we would like to see this interface as part of today's session. Will come towards that later. But you talked about a couple of important things in your previous answer. One is the CDN and the caching. So how does that is supported within this MRT, and how smooth it is?
All right. So one of MRT's key functionalities is improving site performance and making sure that you get your data as fast as possible. So that comes with Edge Service CDNs that it has integrated already. And you can basically access all of your assets, all of your content globally. Based on your location, it caches some information with itself so that whenever there's a request to the site, whatever information like MRT has cached already with it, it's just going to return that without actually making a full call. So in layman terms, it's just going to speed up your site and reduce the number of calls that are going all the way to the back end and to the servers. Besides that, it also has its own edge caching. So it stores, some API responses. It stores like key pages that are visited often, and it just returns that directly from its own cache instead of making a full call again. Besides this, with Composable, like we had in SFRA and SiteGenesis, you can also use customized caching. All of these to work together to basically improve, and it makes a drastic change in the performance and in the speed of your site, which is, heavily influenced by MRT's role that is helping by all of the CDN and cache features that it's providing.
Okay. So basically, in a nutshell, if I say that customers who would like to move towards composable model, MRT provides similar kind of functionalities which they have in SFRA or in SiteGenesis when it comes to caching, CDN, and because they would be on composable model, so this caching strategy or the CDNs would for sure would improve the performance of the storefront. James, coming back to you, I mean, you've been traveling around the globe when it comes to composable and creating this awareness, speaking with the customers. What are the most common questions? I mean, you hear from the customers when it comes to when they plan and discuss their migration approaches with you from SiteGen or SFRA to composable, both from the technical and the business perspective.
Well, I think you actually already touched on a couple in that last conversation there with Foha, which is that a lot of it is like, what does our day-to-day look like as business owners? Do we have still access to, how do we do our merchandising? And then, as you say, it's not even the question. I think, as you rightly say, there's a kind of concern that they've lost business manager already. So a lot of my role is also explaining where the break happens in that sense. Yes, the user experience is now in a separate technology, but merchandising still continues to happen in business manager, as you say. So I think that's a thing, and kind of it continues out into, well, hey, to run the site, do we now have to all know code? And so I think a lot of the way of giving people peace of mind is just also explaining that, as you already said, you can use Page Designer or a third-party CMS to continue to manage the site, and often in many situations, they're actually given a lot more flexibility for the business users to get more pixel perfect management of the the look of the site, and so content owners can do that. So a lot of that is definitely comes down to what does our day-to-day look like, and it's breaking down those misconceptions that they have either from just like rumors that they've heard about it, or the general kind of talking about composable being super technical, or perhaps working with a competing product that is designed more for developers or something like that. So that's a big part of it. And then, questions around, hey, do we have to host everything? Because again, I would say that the bulk of this comes actually from that point of view, really, which is looking at probably, I don't know what you want to call it, but like the way most people are going composable, or the ways most people used to go composable, which was a very, it was a very technical solution, required a lot of code to glue everything together. And so there were a lot of technical and operational burdens put on the customer themselves. So that is one thing with the do we have to write code? Secondly, I guess the thing is also, do we have to host it? And as has already been discussed, the managed runtime is doing that. So, in a typical solution you may have seen in the past, the product vendor's responsibility stops at the API, so at the back end, really. And as long as the API is up and running, they're okay. As you and Foha both already said, and Iftikhar has already sort of discussed as well about this, is our responsibility at Salesforce as a product owner actually comes all the way right to the front, to the storefront. And that includes things like security, uptime, performance, scalability, all of these kind of things kind of built in. So that's questions that always comes up around how do we do operations? What's our day-to-day look like? And I guess the other thing would be things like, how does it work with our existing technology? How do we integrate with that? But again, you already mentioned the idea of somebody who's on SiteGenesis, SFRA, moving across to composable architecture. Most of those things don't really change in the background anyway. So if you're sitting on top of a PIM, there's no change to that integration. I guess the last thing maybe might, things around how do we affect SEO? What about how do we guarantee performance? Things like that. And part of that obviously is the product. And again, as Foha was saying, things like caching, but also part of it is down to how it's implemented. And so, of course, my recommendation is to work with experienced SIs like yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely, James. Thanks for all this insight. I think, these are some of the I would say very common questions, especially with respect to the SEO, caching, CDN, customer preferences, how the MRT works. And that's where the more doubts are. And then again, I mean, as this product and the platform grows, this model grows, I think we see a lot of customers are now getting comfortable with this, or with these questions. Um, Iftikhar, I think you talked about one of the points in your previous answer, that was the pre-built accelerators. So how do you see, I mean, yeah, the integration of these third-party pre-built accelerators, within this composable architecture? And for example, I mean, based on our experience, we've been working with good number of third-party vendors with respect to the content CMS search promotions. uh, how do you see that integration is so seamless, or what are the challenges there?
Okay, the first thing is that Salesforce provides PWA kit storefront, which again I would say it's a complete package. But still, if you want to use any third party, so there are pre-built accelerator packages available, and those packages are you can integrate seamlessly and without generating so much boilerplate code with the glue code to integrate with the storefront layer. In the past, we did this integrations, and it was very quick. For example, we did for the Contentful in order to integrate the CMS things. And similarly, we did Constructor IO and the Algolia as well for the search perspective. And all these accelerator are like just plugin. So no glue code again. So it's very fast in integrations, and there are a vast variety of accelerator available for this composable things. And also, when you integrate your storefront with the backend layer, so you have security concern as well. So for this perspective, Salesforce Scapy API provide 2 to 3 level of different security and role for the sharper APIs, where they do provide for public client, private client, which covers different use case for authentications. So this is also available out of the box and pretty much quick into integrate, right? Uh, Apart from this, if you talk about the client side code security, since it's a composable and the client side runs separately, so the core's uh, functionality is also available in PWA kit, where you can block the cross origin request by implementing the cores, and also it offers some custom HTTP header as well that you need to implement to make your storefront secure. So it's fast, secure, and easy to integrate.
Excellent. Great. Yeah, I think this is one of the key differences, when I was speaking with one of my colleagues there, who works on a different e-commerce platform. And when I told him that, yeah, I mean, there are pre-built accelerators available, from these third-party vendors, and those are being developed dedicatedly for, or exclusively for, Salesforce B2C composable commerce. So he was surprised. So I think that's the key difference, which makes customers think about using best of the breed available in market from these third parties, right?
Yeah.
Foha, coming back to you've been part of the projects and the POCs for Composable. So a very simple question. We have a package. I'm going to talk about that assessment package at the end of this webinar, which we offer to our to the customers who are planning to migrate to Composable. How do you see, I mean, let's say if customer comes and they approach uh, us to, that, okay, let's plan for the POC, or let's plan for the composable migration. So how do you approach this? I mean, how has been your experience, and how did you start these POCs?
So we have had a couple of instances where a customer has approached us and they're kind of half and half on this. Either they're moving from SiteGenesis and they're trying to decide whether they should go to SFRA or if it's better for them to take a leap and go to Composable directly. And then there's some customers who are coming from different platforms and, they've been hearing all the rage about a Composable and they're thinking maybe this suits our needs. For that, the first thing that we definitely do is that we study, first of all, what is their implementation. Obviously, like what do they currently have? Are they on SiteGenesis? Are they on SFRA? Are they on some other platform? Once we have like a deep understanding of like the platform that they're on, then we go ahead and we look at like a technical analysis. Technical analysis, it depends on your client. It depends on the kind of business that you have. There are a lot of customers that are more focused on, like CDN, maybe they have a lot of content-rich websites. There's some that have a lot of integrations on the back end and they don't really worry about the front end. So what we do is that we have, some sessions with the client where we try to understand where they're coming from and what their exact needs are. We give them a good idea of, how things are going to work, what the flow of it is, what they want to focus on, what they want, the key features and what they're trying to achieve from this migration, because it's important for us to understand what the customer wants in the end result. After that, we basically compile a list of everything that we've discussed in these calls, everything that they want to focus on, the key areas, whatever they want to achieve from this. And based on that, we identify low risk, high risk areas, things that we think that this might take some time, this might be a little risky, this might be resolved in this specific way. And based on that, we create an effort or an effort estimate or a map of how we're going to go ahead with this. Hypothetically, if they were to start their migration. For customers on SiteGenesis and SFRA, we've discussed this in previous podcasts as well. They do have the option of moving a phased rollout. So a phased rollout is basically where they would have their current site working and maybe they could move like 1 or 2 pages on Composable, and you could actually even deploy that live to see how it works and how the customers are responding to those sites. And it would work seamlessly with your own site. So you'd have both things working. We also provide this option to them. Once all of this is done, and if they seem happy with the effort estimates that we've provided or the case study that we've done, then we move ahead and we offer a POC for them in which we target any key areas. So mostly for customers, this is either the PLP, the quick view, or the PDP. These are the main areas that customers are generally, that clients are generally concerned about. They want these to be as fast as possible. So for those ones, what we do is that we, again, break down all of the components that we have in those pages. And we decide that, okay, we're going to migrate these specific pages on Composable, and we're going to show them, a quick view of how this works, along with, some load testing where we can show them and we draw out a comparison between their current site and what the performance of Composable is going to give. So we target these areas. We try to match it as much as possible with the current site that they have. And again, for SiteGenesis and SFRA customers, we also, on a development stage, we can create that entire scenario where you have a phased rollout. Once this POC is completed, we break down all of the results. We try to, we try to see if the customer is happy with what we've achieved in terms of performance, speed, SEO, all of those factors that they were concerned about are the ones that they wanted to improve on. And based on that, then we give them a final case study and, we see if they would want to actually implement this on their production site. So this is the main flow that we've followed, and we've done this for a couple of customers before, so it's kind of routine for us now.
Okay, excellent. I think this is this is the path how we implement our POCs and before we actually kick off the project. So I think there's one more thought, and James, you must have heard about it, from the customers, and I would like to take your view and also Iftikhar's view on this. There's a term, total cost of ownership. right? Now, what we hear is during the project and even once you're good to go live, post go live, is the total cost of ownership increases if customer is moving towards the composable model, and that with respect to the cost, that with respect to the skills which are required to manage and maintain this composable model. So James, yeah, please.
Actually, that's a fantastic question. That's actually an excellent question because it's one of the things that's so overlooked. And I'm just gonna speak straight, really clear here. Salesforce is terrible for giving people sticker shock because Salesforce tends to give a lot of everything up front, right? Let's be honest, right? Salesforce gives the license up front, and a lot of people look at comparisons and say, well, you guys seem expensive, but you're absolutely right. The TCO thing is a big deal because there can be a lot of hidden expenses in a composable operation, let's say, because you've already talked about build costs and you've already talked, you guys really have done a great job of explaining how things like the pre-built accelerators really help get to market more quickly with us. So we do help cut down on build, but the running costs are, can be a real concern. And it's, frankly, it's, I have great pride in the fact that we have customers who have moved across from SiteGenesis and SFRA without increasing their running costs at all. So that's been a really, really great side of things. But let's just quickly dig into that really quickly. So one of the things is managed runtime is included your existing license. If you have SiteGenesis or SFRA, managed runtime is already included, and we don't have any kind of strange, weird things where but now you're using it through peak trading and you hit more traffic, and we don't have any of those things. And I know anyone who's looked at paying for hosting costs with any of the typical cloud hosting, it can be quite unpredictable. I've heard companies say they don't even know how to. It's really difficult to work out how much it cost to do business last year, let alone predict what next year is going to cost. So really quite complex. And then there's the sort of indirect costs of how many people do you need to hire to run the site because it's super technical. So generally, I think you guys covered this, but I would just for clarity here, the thing about managed runtime is it's really easy to use. Really easy to use. Like if you get somebody up and running on it, to do their day-to-day basically in 10 minutes, right? Once you guys have set things up and stuff like that, then it's totally incredibly easy to use. And that's really important. And okay, you might not be using it for things like, you might be doing a lot of stuff by API driven things, but the general kind of admin console is really easy to use. So generally you don't need to take on extra people to run the operations. So I think from a TCO point of view, as I say, the typical sticker shock, but there isn't an increase in licensing costs from us. And usually there isn't an increase in any kind of incidental side effects from that. Now, the other thing you did quickly mention is about skills. And it's one thing I forgot to mention at the start. One of the reasons people have gone composable is moving away from proprietary technologies into industry standards. And so I guess if you have a bunch of people who don't want to do that and they want to stick with their skills, that might require hiring. But we've usually found that moving to an industry standard like React makes it much easier to hire people and to work with them. So generally, we don't see an increase in running costs. And you're absolutely right. It's hugely important and should be one of the first things people are looking at when they're considering going composable is just the running costs in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we agree with for what you just said, and I think now I would say customers have become very smart now, and with respect to skills, I mean, they want the existing developers, with who are proprietary developers on B2C commerce. They want to get them trained on React as well, which it is just the adaptation of a new skill, and I think everybody is open to do that. Iftikhar, now one more thing which I would like to know. How do you suggest a customer, or how do you decide that okay, this is the customer, or this customer is the right fit for the B2C composable commerce, or this customer should rather go for SFRA instead of moving towards composable?
Yeah. So I think there are a few things based on that I could say that the composable commerce is the best for them. Number one, if you have excessive merchandising work on your product pages and you have a lot of marketing stuff going on, and you have to change your storefront product listing pages in terms of marketing content things. So I think in that case, composable is best fit because when you will use the composable, so you have the option to integrate any CMS seamlessly whenever you want. What is best fit for your needs, right? So if you do have excessive merchandising work, marketing work, so a composable best fit here. And number two is if your existing infrastructure and your different systems have API ready data. So then the composable again is best fit for you. When I say the API ready data, it means that your data you don't need to have enough data transition transformations things need to be happen within across the systems. So if you do have already data which is API ready, so then you are best fit for the composable, right? And the third thing I would say is that if you do have diverse team on different technology already you do not need to have extra trainings or new skill sets. So if you have already team on that different diverse skills, so you are best fit for the composable. So these are a few things I would say that for those type of clients, the composable is best fit.
Okay. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Iftikhar. James, one quick question. I mean, because you've been, working very closely with the product team, you've been leading the product team in the Salesforce side. So how do you see we know that since the launch of this composable commerce and the time we are in today, we've seen there's a lot of growth when it comes to introducing this, managing the customer preferences, a portal which Salesforce has launched. How do you see the roadmap of composable commerce? And plus, I would add one more question to this of the launch of AgentForce, right? So this agentic platform. So how that also correlates with composable?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and yeah, you've heard of AgentForce, eh? Yeah, we talk about it a bit. Yeah, so okay, so I mean, obviously, for anyone who's listening here, I think the best thing is to think of it like this: is that as we've gone through the years, the changes to it have become more refined. It's smaller changes because obviously the product is more full-featured. And I think one of the big changes of this last year and continuing to the next year is more of a case of things you could do with Composable Storefront, it now is doing out of the box. So it becomes these higher order functions. It's not just like making this API available. It's much more a case of things like BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, is now feature straight out of the box. It's just in the accelerator to start off with. We're doing more work around personalization tied to, we have an API called Shopper Context, which allows you to personalize content pricing and so on like that. Obviously on one side for typical, for a customer who's logged in, but even for anonymous customers by taking things like geolocation, time of day, device type, and so on like that, you can still actually do some levels of personalization. So I think that's one of the areas we're really improving in. We continue to refine the APIs themselves, so improved scalability, performance, and so on like that. Also, we spent a lot more time working on things like custom APIs, which has really given us a lot of flexibility from that point of view. But to your point, the biggest innovation that everyone's going to see right now is AgentForce and how this is going to impact shopping. And I'm going to put my reputation on the line a bit, right? So here we go. I think, I mean, I could say this cagey and hedge my bets here. I could say that I could say certainly that the idea of a personalized person shopper agent has the potential to revolutionize how we interact with customers. I mean, I feel it could easily be as big as, for instance, say mobile shopping became, right? 1 year everyone was like, yeah, I guess we have a few customers on mobile. 2 years later, it was like 60% of our shoppers are now coming in through mobile websites. So I feel that this personal shopper experience with agents has a huge opportunity here to be quite sort of groundbreaking. And so just for anyone who doesn't know what an agent is, think of it as the ability to use AI to make decisions, provide information like generative AI, but also make decisions based on information and context and follow through, multi-stage tasks. So we've all seen chatbots, we've all seen, or many of us have seen things like Copilot type approaches. An agent is more like an autonomous car where it's constantly making decisions, it's constantly reacting to stimulus and taking action. And so this allows you to work on two sides. It's obviously the kind of the merchandiser facing aspect of this, the back office style of this, where you can automate tasks. One thing looking to the future is going to be an increased amount of workload for a variety of reasons. And so this is going to help offset that workload with what Mark Benioff calls digital labor. So that ability to do that. But also, I think the thing that's going to be the one that obviously stands out most of the shopper is the shopper-facing experience. And again, most of us have seen this as a chat. I think we're going to see some refinement of that user experience, because a chat right now, a lot of people think, oh, it's just like a regular chat bot. They're very, very different. If you've ever worked with them, you can swap context really quickly. They're much easier to train up in the first place, and you can ask much more general questions. So instead of a kind of decision tree approach like a chatbot, you're able to get really, really complex discussions going. So just to give a quick example to put some, meaning to this, what I'm talking about is the idea of saying to one of these agents, hey, by the way, maybe it's a grocery. You could say, hey, could you give, this is my budget, this is the size of my family, these are the kind of preferences we have, give me a week's shopping, things like that, really complex tasks that they're able to actually go away and give very, very relevant results. When you're talking about high consideration items like electronics, does this work with this, work with this? It's got all of your product details, and it's able to go out to the wider web. And Salesforce has spent a lot of time, which we haven't got time to go into, refining those answers to make sure you get much more accurate answers. You're not also exposing sensitive data to the rest of the world, anything like that. So I think it's going to be absolutely huge, frankly. So yeah, let's let's see how this goes.
No, I think that's great. I think that we've been into this AgentForce, and working on this AgentForce platform since it has launched and introduced by Salesforce. We are actually creating industry specific agents, which includes insurance, which includes health, automotive, finance, banking, retail. And yes, I mean this buyer's agent or the shopper's agent, I think that is something which is offloading actually a lot of work from the human workers, these digital workers. I think that's where I think we would see the great difference. All right, excellent. So now I'm going to pass it on to Foha, and we would love to see this React-based PWA kit storefront, how it looks like, and we would also love to see a bit of the backend, the MRT, some of the features. So Foha, I'm passing it on to you. Please, go ahead.
Sure. So I'm going to start with an overview of MRT. As we discussed before, MRT, again, is the hosting platform. This is what the dashboard would look like. Your customer, the business of your customer or clients, does interact with MRT to an extent. So, for example, we have 5 projects over here. This is because we're working on different POCs with different integrations, but ideally you'd just have your 1 project or 2 projects depending on the kind of business that you have. And within that project, you'd have different environments. Like we have only production over here, but you'd have staging, development, and production. And each instance would correlate to the instance that you have in Business Manager for production, development, and staging. You can see that we've got 5 environments. As you can see from this disclaimer message, that we've reached a limit of 5 environments. So we get these 5 environments for free whenever if you have any realm, any instance right now, if you've never used Composable before, if you just sign in right now and head over to Manage Runtime and log in, you'll be able to create an environment just like this. So it's that easy to use. You can see these are just some main settings for, who has permission to view what kind of permissions. This is a record of the deployments that we have. We have URL redirects, which is similar to what we have in the Business Manager. We have environment variables. So this is slightly similar or quite similar to the custom preferences that we have in Business Manager. You can see that it says that this is specifically for sensitive data. So for the backend implementation, if you want to store any API keys, you can store them over here. I do have some configured over here, including my SLAS private client ID and secret. These are some things that I needed in order to get my preview functionality as well as my phased rollout working. Besides that, you have environment settings. This is mostly more relevant for developers. This is the instance that your current environment is linked to. So if you, for example, if you have production, it would be linked to your production instance. Right now, I'm just using a sandbox. Then you have some some external host name. These are all for what your URL would look like, your host name would look like. Then you've got some proxies based on what you want to use. You've got a Capia API, and this one is specifically for the phased rollout. Again, this is more relevant for developers. You also have logs, so there isn't currently any interface for the logs, but you can log them using this command on any command prompt. Heading back to our deployments, you can see that we have a record of all the bundles that we've deployed. So these are all the codes for React that we've deployed for the storefront. And right now, for example, you can see I have 59 records of this, and I can roll back to any previous version if I want to. There's also a deployment history of who deployed what at what time. Over here, we have two functionalities. We have preview site and visit site. So I'm going to show you what the preview site looks like. This is basically the same thing, the same look and feel that your original site would have, except that you have one additional option over here to preview it within a specific date, time, using a source code, customer group IDs, and custom qualifiers. So this is quite similar to the toolkit that we have on Business Manager. To give you a view of this, I'm going to head over to a page that I designed on Page Designer. So this is a page that I've created on Page Designer that you can see. This is the same Page Designer page on my Business Manager. You can see over here there are two additional components that are not showing up there, and that is because these are for specific customer groups. So I've scheduled this component to only show up in March, and for this component, I've targeted it to big spenders. So it's only visible to big spenders. And you can see over here that as soon as I put in these, for example, if I put in big spenders, you can see that this shows up. And if I move on to a date within March is where I've scheduled the other component to show up. There. You can see that this shows up as well. So there might be some slight difference between what the UI looks like over here and what it looks like over here. This is a quick React fix again because this is a decoupled storefront. So sometimes there might be some differences between what you see over here and what you see over here. Ideally, it wouldn't because you'd be matching the UIs, but this is just a better view of what your preview would. This is a better preview of what your end page would look like. Again, you can see that everything is in sync with here. Everything that we've configured over here, all of these components, whatever text that we have, whatever products that we have are exactly in sync with what we see on our MRT preview or on our MRT storefront. So if we go to visit site, I'll give you a quick walkthrough of what the phased rollout looks like. I do already have some products in my cart, so I can just, for saving time, skip over. And as soon as I click on cart, you can see that I'm redirected to my cart page, and I have the products that I had added in my cart over there. So your session is bridged. Whatever products that you've added over there are added back here. And if I move to checkout, so my cart and my checkout pages, you can see that this experience is being continued on SFRA, but as soon as we click on any other page, we're redirected back to PWA kit. So right now, because the UIs are different for both sites, so it's visible, the change is visible to you, but for any customer, if you match those UIs directly and any customers browsing, they won't really be able to tell that they've moved, to and from different sites, or they're moving from SFRA to Composable. It's very seamless. It's very fast. So this is what a phased rollout looks like. So just before I wrap it up, I do want to go once through the storefront that we built with custom integrations. I'm not going to walk through all of the integrations, but I just want to show you the main ones. This is what our storefront looks like. So this is a storefront that we designed specifically with our company theme. You can see over here, we've got a couple of integrations that we've done. In this specific storefront and the Contentful storefront, we have all of this data coming in from Contentful. So Contentful is a third-party CMS that is in sync currently with SFCC. It's pulling in all of the product data from SFCC, from the business manager. And we configure these products from the Contentful CMS. We have discussed this in other podcasts as well. So for a more deep insight, we do have podcasts available that's specifically for each of these integrations. Anyway, over here we've got, if I search something, you can see that this is powered by Constructor. So this is another integration we have in here. This is a search engine of Constructor.io. All of this data is coming in from Constructor. And we've also got Page Designer over here. This is the same thing, similar to what I showed earlier. And if we move over to our PLP, I'll just give you a quick view of our... Okay, so this is what the checkout looks like. You can see that the tax has to be decided. So we have Avalara integrated here for tax calculations. As soon as we enter our address and continue. Okay. There. Now you can see that the tax is calculated. It basically uses different information that we give it for the shipping address and the billing address. So based on the zip code, Avalara calculates the tax. The payment we have over here is using Stripe. This is what the interface looks like compared to this is the out of the box. And again, this is Stripe. So this is what the interface looks like for Stripe. These are the different integrations that we did, and I think I can wrap it up over here with that. Thank you for your time. That's it from my end.
Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar. And as I shared within this webinar, that we do offer 2 weeks of free POC, or a free assessment, I would say, where we where we study your existing SiteGenesis or SFRA Salesforce B2C commerce space, and we would provide our recommendations based on what would be the migration approach, whether you should move from SiteGenesis to SFRA, or you are best fit for Salesforce B2C Composable, fully composable model, or you should opt for Salesforce B2C Composable with hybrid storefront model, where you migrate your catalog pages on Composable and you keep your checkout on SiteGenesis or on SFRA. That is another option. So we do study your space, and then we provide recommendations and the migration pathways. And this 2 weeks free assessment and free POC, this POC comes with no cost on you. It is the cost on Royal Sabre, so it comes with completely free package, and there's no obligation or liability where once this POC ends and this assessment ends, then it is not. There's no obligation that you have to go and sign the project. It is just we are giving you the visibility of how your existing space look like, or best fit for the composable commerce, or migrating towards the composable commerce. So all the attendees, all the registrants will get an email or will get a reach out from our sales team with respect to this free POC or the free assessment. Thank you again, and we'll look forward connecting you with in another webinar on Composable. Thank you.